Yourself, do something!
It shows a crowd during Friday's Trans March shouting at state senator and congressional candidate Scott Wiener, eventually chasing him away. Shows a Market Street melee that left 2 San Francisco police officers injured and 5 people under arrest. SFTV.
Are you guys the nice side or the naughty side? The naughty side.
After about 2 hours wrapping up the Pride Parade that went through the city here in San Francisco, there is a physical heaviness in my heart from what I saw. It's just the conduct of people and the most inappropriate behavior, the lewdness and the sexual morality. Even in front of little children, people walking across the streets just naked and parading about how we can dishonor God. The conversations I was able to have with people and just see the brokenness that they've experienced, the trauma, that how they chose to respond to it. The Bible talks about this great delusion, this deception, this strong deception that is going to come, and just how far we've gone from what love really is. I don't know what to say. We need Jesus so bad.
Again, the Lord, He has created you and I in His own image with worth and with purpose and with value. And He has given us His law. My friends, His law is good. His law protects us from the things that hurt us. We would not say that a guardrail alongside of a road that bends around the edge of a cliff is there to keep us from having fun. Rather, my friends, we would say that a guardrail alongside of a road that bends around the edge of a cliff is there to protect us. And so God has given us His law to protect us. He knows what hurts us, the things that we do that harm others around us. However, with the gift of life, my friends, the Lord, He has also given to each one of us the gift of free will, a decision to decide, a choice to make every single day who it is in this life that we are going to serve. Often we will brush throughout life saying, I don't need God, I'm good. But we're not good. The definition of good is that which is morally right or righteousness. And none of us at every given opportunity, my friends, have always done what was morally right. Not one person on this earth can stand and look at ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what, I've never done wrong. I've never sinned, I've never hurt another person, I've never turned away from God. My friends, we have all fallen short of His glory. Each one of us has contributed towards the problem of evil that is in this world, and in doing so, we have been corrupted by it. And so often we're so worried about the evil that's out there in the world, but there's so much evil residing in here. And we first have to start with ourselves, to look deeply within. My friends, in a generation, we will check our phone 1,000 times before we check our heart. The Lord, He is calling us to look inwardly. Illiterate. And as we look at ourselves, as we see our motives and our intentions, we are honest, my friends. A deep reflection on the life that we lived is something that we steer clear of, but we often avoid in our generation today. We'll be so occupied and entertained, distracted by other noises and voices when there's only one voice that matters. Only one voice that matters. The Bible declares that while man looks at outward appearance, God sees our hearts. Man, we can focus on the physical attributes by the outward appearance, but God looks within. What He values is not what the world values, my friends. And we've all fallen short of God's glory, whatever facet, whatever capacity, whatever form or fashion that has come, and we've all sinned. And the Bible declares that the wages of sin is death. That might sound harsh, but that is because God is the author of life, and sin, it separates us from Him. Now again, while man looks at outward appearance, God sees our hearts. Jesus declared, if we look at another person with lust towards them, we have already committed adultery in our heart. He said, you have heard that it was told, do not commit murder. But He said, I tell you, even if you harbor hatred in your heart towards another human being, you have already committed murder in your heart. Jesus declared, even saying to someone, you fool, puts us in danger of the fire of hell. And it might sound harsh the way that He worded it that way, my friends, but it needs to be, because He declared, from the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. That means our words, they carry weight, and it is more than just some simple syllables that flow forth from our lips, more than a mere muscle movement of the tongue. But what overflows from our mouth, my friends, it starts within our heart. And in a generation we seem to have nothing but negative things to say, just constantly complaining. The Lord instead instructs us to let no unwholesome talk come out of our mouth. but only what is useful to edify, to encourage, and to build others up. And I plead with you, my friends, because I was so lost and so blind for so long, and I didn't even realize it. And if God can save me, there is no one in the world that He cannot save. I plead with you, my friends. We were taught as kids to look both ways before we cross the street, but there is a street that we are crossing and we're paying no attention. It is dangerous. We're lurking in, my friends, to mucky waters, and it isn't safe up ahead. The way that our generation is going, the way that we have strayed away from God, I plead with you, my friends, to humble your heart and to turn back, because the time is drawing near for Jesus to return. He has given us signs to look out for. The prophecies, they're well underway. If we just open up our eyes and read a little bit, we could see that He is coming back soon. And I pray that when that King returns, He finds us doing something that He is proud of, walking in a manner, living in a way that is honorable. But at the end of the day, the Lord, He will deeply honor, He will greatly respect the decision that we make out of the free will we are given. If we want nothing at all whatsoever to do with God on this earth, then He will allow us to have nothing at all whatsoever to do with Him for eternity. If we desire to drown out God's voice, to slap away His hand, to take that free will and to spend our days closing our ears and telling God, leave me alone, then my friends, for eternity He will. Jesus, He loved you and I enough to tell us the truth. He did not compromise the truth in order to cater to our feelings. Rather, He was willing to touch on topics. Jesus, He spoke about the subjects that other people often avoided in their attempt to never offend anyone. My friends, I plead with you, because if we love another person, if we care about another person, we are going to tell them the truth. If we care about ourselves, if we're only concerned with ourselves, we're going to tell that other person what they want to hear. We're going to knowingly allow them to walk in a way that leads to destruction just because we're too afraid of ruffling up some feathers, causing some friction or opposition. But the world will tell you, my friends, that the truth hurts, so that person couldn't handle the truth. But Jesus said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. He calls us to pursue this truth, to pursue wisdom, to seek knowledge, though it costs us all we have. To love that truth more than anything else in the world. To love truth more than we love our family, more than we love our friends, more than we love even our own life. And it is there and only there that the truth will set us free. See, Jesus, He loved you and I enough to talk both about the glory and the majesty of heaven. And Jesus also touched on hell. He described heaven as a place where there's no more sorrow, no more tears, no more death. And that's the way that He created this world to be functioning, that, my friends, that there was no death, no disease, no destruction, but these things that came through our disobedience. It was not the original intention of the Lord for this world to be filled with suffering and sickness, but sadly that's a result of our sin. And it would have been right to the Lord, He just stepped back to leave us to suffer in our own sin, but that is not His nature, that is not His character. Instead, He chose to make a promise over all creation and every nation throughout each generation, repeating it again and again and again. We can see what is important to the Lord by the things that He makes clear over and over. He says, I will live in them, I will walk among them, I will be their God, and they will be my people. But again, the direction that we decide on, my friends, it determines the destination that we end up. And we might be convinced that by this world in our late 20s and our early 30s that we're in our prime. Because young men, we grow strong, but the reality is that strong men grow old and old men die. Physically, the same fate awaits us all. My friends, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, and one day our physical body will pass away. You do not have a soul. You are a soul and you have a body, and one day in this body, our bones become brittle, our skin will begin to wrinkle, our hair will start to fall out. And this generation will do so much to try and change our outward appearance, make our physical beauty appealing to other people around us, but yet we are called to look within. My friends, the Lord, He loves you more than you love you. He cares about you more than you care about yourself. And we've all fallen short of God's glory. Every single one of us, regardless of the way that we were raised, what country we were born in, what things that we have done, or what has been done to us, we are called back. It is the loving kindness of God that has made a way. My friends, there isn't anything that we can ever do to undo or outdo the wrong we have done. We cannot save ourselves. We cannot earn our way to heaven, but that is why Christ came. Again, Jesus, He spoke both about the glory and the majesty of heaven, and He talked about hell. He described it as a place of weeping, of wailing, and of gnashing of teeth, of eternal fire, and it's not God's will that anyone would go there. However, my friends, we must understand that God didn't have to get creative in concocting up some horrible torture chamber for people to experience in hell. That is not his heart. However, there are principles applicable in a physical sense that are the same spiritually. That in this world, darkness is just simply the absence of light. A cold temperature is just the absence of warmth. And so if all the wonderful experiences that we have on this earth are sourced through God's mercy, through his compassion, through his kindness, through his grace, then separated from that, my friends, there's nothing left good for us to experience. One day, when our time on this earth comes to an end, we will give an account to God. Often this makes people upset to hear. But the truth is that we love playing God. We love upholding justice in the lives of the people on this earth. We get very passionate about standing alongside of those whose cause we support. But then all of a sudden, when it comes time for justice to be brought to our own life, when it comes time for me to get what I deserve for the wrong that I have done, now all of a sudden I want an excuse, I want a way out, I want someone else to blame. But my friends, that is not fair. The Lord, he is perfectly fair. He shows no favoritism, no discrimination, no bias, no partiality. If someone were to one day break into our home and very badly injure our spouse and our children, and then that person goes to stand before a judge, and the judge just simply lets them off the hook and says, well, it's because I'm a nice person, we would not say that that judge is fair, that that judge is just, that is a good judge. So yes, God is merciful. Yes, he is compassionate. Yes, God is steadfast, abounding, and he overflows in loving kindness. But he is also righteous. God is holy, and he is just. He cannot just freely pardon sin or let it go unpunished, because that would be compromising his justice. But my friends, the amazing news is that not only did God render and execute full righteous judgment against the sins of humanity, not only did he give the punishment, he chose to be the one to receive it on our behalf. It is the good news of the gospel that the Lord is not far off and aloof, dead, distant, or dormant. Rather, the King of all creation, he is near to the brokenhearted, that God saves those who are crushed in spirit. That he stepped forth into this world not as a barbarian, not as a warrior, not as a gladiator, but as a baby born humbly in a manger, to grow up among all the sorrow, all the brokenness, all the pain, the hurt, the rejection, the abandonment, and the grief, everything that we encounter on this earth. In those seasons, my friends, we can lift up our voice to a God who understands. And the Bible records that before Jesus was taken to the cross to pay for the sins of humanity, he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, Father, if there is any other way for this cup to be taken from me, yet nonetheless not my will, but yours be done. And in that garden, it also documents from Scripture that Jesus, as he prayed, he began to sweat drops of blood. As cardiologists and dermatologists have looked into this, they have found that a human being can be under such deep distress, such great agony, that the capillaries in their skin burst and blood begins to seep from their pores. Now, my friends, this great anguish, this deep agony that Jesus was under in that garden was not just his foreknowledge of a physical torture he was about to experience at the hands of some Roman soldiers. Rather, the significance of his sacrifice went much deeper than what could be identified with the naked eye. That for hours, wave after wave, Christ was receiving the full wrath of God's judgment, his holy hatred against the sins of humanity. But in sending his Son to the world, God knew that death would not have the last word. Jesus Christ, he stands victoriously triumphant over the greatest enemy of mankind. There is no religion that will ever be able to save you and I. For the word religion in Latin, it actually means to bind. You look at Buddhism, Sikhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, we can immediately identify some sort of man-made numerical system. Whether it be 5 pillars of faith, or 4 noble truths, 8-fold path, or 10 commandments. But Jesus Christ, he did not come to establish some rules and regulations. He came to set us free. Religion is man's failed attempt to earn a way back to God, but Christ came to show it's rather about what God has done to come to us. There is no greater love that has been demonstrated to humanity than what God has done through the cross. A love that stretches so deep, so vast, so far, so high and wide, for even the one that the world says is too far gone. My friends, the Lord, he desires that no one would perish, but instead that all people would come to a knowledge of the truth and that we would be saved. He is immeasurably more compassionate. He is infinitely more gracious than we can imagine him to be. The Lord, he did not desire that Adolf Hitler would die and go to hell. He did not desire that Osama bin Laden would die and go to hell. He desires that all people would come to a knowledge of the truth and that we would be saved. Today is a new day, and God's mercies are new every morning if we are willing just to humble our hearts. But my friends, it should crush us as one day we give an account to God that we knew we could solve the water crisis, we could fix global world hunger today with the amount of money we choose instead of spend on nicotine and alcohol. And while people in other places are passing away because they don't even have the basic means to meet their needs for survival, and yet we're spending money on things that are killing us more quickly. The worst part is we'll show up to the office on Monday morning, we'll treat it as a joke, we'll laugh it off with our coworkers, the things that we can't even recall happening Friday night because we were too intoxicated. But I'll tell you that the Lord, He does not find these things funny. Jesus, He declared that to those whom much has been given, much will be required. And one day as we stand in the presence of God, we're not just going to give an account for all the wrong things that we did that we knew we weren't supposed to do, but also for all the opportunity we had to do right and didn't take it. Because we live in a world that pushes an agenda of saying that you need to live your best life now. Well, the author and the giver of life, He shows us exactly how to do that. In order to live your best life now, we must lay it down for others. And it is an incredibly freeing thing when we no longer walk feeling sorry for ourselves, always making excuses or living with a victim mentality. But again, Jesus, He declared, you will know the truth will set you free. There is no religious leader, no historical figure, regardless of what they taught or what they believed, my friends, that can compare to the King of all creation, that God in the flesh chose to come down so that we are without an excuse. He made itself every evidence. We look through the lives that we live and the world around us, my friends, and the Lord has borne witness of His existence in many different facets, many different capacities, and yet we choose to just simply suppress the truth. And this is something that we must actively engage in. It is something that we must continuously do, because the moment that we start to allow that truth to slip through our fingers, it comes rising to the surface. Truth always triumphs. The light, my friends, it always conquers darkness. This is the natural order of things, the way that God had set it out. But yet we have chosen to turn a blind eye, to keep ignorance at the forefront of our minds, so that we don't have to give an account to what we know to be the truth, just rather living with cognitive dissonance, walking in the complete opposite direction of the way that we know we are created to live, just because that's the way that everyone else is going. And my friends, if God can save someone as arrogant and as selfish, as prideful, as ignorant, as hard-hearted as I was, there's no one in the world that He cannot save. We just must be willing to humble ourselves. And it's so saddening to see that after everything that we can accomplish on this earth, the places that we could visit, the people that we could meet, the degrees that we could earn, all of our accolades, our achievements, my friends, one day when we pass away from this earth, we're going to leave it all behind. Do you know the number one thing that people regret before they die? After all the research, the surveys, the interviews conducted, the biggest thing that people regret before they pass away, looking back on their life, it is trading the authenticity for the approval of other people. It is going against who we were created to be, to instead be accepted by a world that really has no concern or care at all whatsoever for our well-being. And He loves you and I enough, my friends. The Lord, He speaks about the truth. He calls us to humble ourselves, to turn this day from whatever it is that is keeping us from growing closer to Him. Regardless of how socially acceptable or socially unacceptable it may seem, the Lord is calling us to be set free. When we pass away from this earth, we're going to leave behind our family, our friends, our finances, our physical health. We're going to leave behind our occupation, our education, our reputation. All of these things will stay here. And my friends, the only thing that we are going to take with us when we return to the only thing that is going to last is our choices. How we chose to treat other people on this earth, whether or not we chose to steward the resources, the responsibilities the Lord has entrusted to us faithfully.
It's got to be about that life. Jesus Christ. It's about that life.
Because we live in a world that says, do what makes you happy. Believe in yourself. Follow your heart. Jesus said, no. Deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. It is the selfish, hedonistic, indulgent pleasure that our culture condones is the way that Jesus lovingly warned leads right to hell. Rather, God instead calls us to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility to value others above ourselves. But this is the complete opposite thing our world teaches. Again, the Bible says that pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but whoever humbles themselves will be exalted. And my friends, if we live by everyone else's approval, then we will die by their criticism. What we feed grows and what we starve dies. And it takes an entire lifetime to build a good reputation, however, only a single moment to completely destroy it. Again, my friends, it takes a whole lifetime for us to build a good reputation, yet one moment, one bad decision to completely destroy it. If there's one personality trait, one characteristic, one attribute that will destroy our life quicker than anything else, it is our pride. To believe that we're above reproach, that we're in no need of correction, that there's nothing left for us to learn, that no one on the earth has the right to tell us we are wrong. My friends, if that is the mentality of which we walk throughout this life, it will not be long before we find ourselves living in circumstances we never would have imagined. And I plead with you, my friends, because the day is drawing near for Christ to come back. When he returns, it will not be as a baby born in a manger, but as a king that comes triumphantly upon the clouds. He is coming in glory and his might. And if we do not believe that it grieves the heart of God to look at all the corruption, the wickedness, the evil that continues to occur in our world, we are wrongly mistaken. The Lord is ready to eradicate iniquity, to establish equity back to the earth that he has formed. And when Christ comes back, he is going to cleanse the world of all sin and those who continue to practice it. Because the Lord, he loves us so much that he gives us chance after chance after chance after chance after chance. And someone who has resided 70 years on this earth has lived over 36 million minutes in the world. If we did not count just one of those minutes worthy enough to return to the God who puts breath in our lungs, then God will honor our decision. My friends, the most precious currency that we have to give on this earth is our time. Jesus, he asked, what does it benefit someone if they're able to gain the whole world and yet forfeit their own soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? And I plead with you, my friends, because in that biggest regret that people have before they die, we have all chosen to conform to this world. We've spent years of doing so. The problem arises when we recognize that, but it's too late. However, the Lord, he calls us back in this day and this hour. We can again know who it is that we were created to be by looking back to the creator of the cosmos. The Bible declares that in his image, God has made you and I with worth and with purpose and with value. And we've all chosen, my friends, to turn away from that, but yet we are called back to God's family. You are all welcomed in the family of the Most High God, if only we are willing to humble ourselves, to turn from our sin, the very things that Jesus, he died to set us free from. I plead with you, my friends, in this day and this hour, let us humble our hearts and come back, to not throw a blind eye. He made you and I in his own image. He created us in his likeness, to love him, to be known by him.
For your life, that every road outside of Christ and the way he designed us, it leads to death and ultimately hell. Jesus said very clearly that he's the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by me. Jesus said, he said that he's the door to the sheep, and everybody that enters in by me shall be saved. You saw this man just enter into the door. He just got saved because he was humble and he gave his life to Jesus. He believed in the gospel.